Hi, this is Chris Hawkins, and you're listening to the Liverpool Connection Podcast.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Liverpool Connection Podcast. I'm your host Daz, and this is my football and music episode where I bring somebody on, usually who's into music and football. But again, this is just a musical guest today, so you won't get any football whatsoever, which is all right with me because sometimes when you get somebody that you admire and you've listened to and you've grown up with, who is available to come on and have a good chat, I'm all for it. So my guest for today is James Atkin. He's the frontman for EMF. If you don't know who EMF is, in the next hour you will. They had an amazing worldwide smash called Unbelievable in the 90s. But he's also a solo artist, got a brand new album that came out last year called Circadian Rhythms, and it is absolutely excellent. It reminds me of some of the older New Order stuff. But we'll have a good chat about that. But welcome to the show, James.
Hey Darren, thanks for having me on.
So no football whatsoever. At least you know what a football looks like, but you just it's not your cup of tea, which is all right.
All right, okay, but isn't it the Euros this summer? So
It is.
yeah, look,
See,
there
you
go.
know a
That's
little
it.
bit.
That's it, man. We're on it. We're talking football already. Yeah, I do like the international games and the European games and stuff, But
Well, it's not. But, I mean, for me, it's more Premier League than internationals. But I want to go. I'm going straight in at the deep end. I want to delve deep into what was your musical influences like growing up, like in your house. Like for me, I mean, my dad's from Rednall, Birmingham, so he's a Brummie. But he was big into like, Ozzy, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple. I had that. And then my mum, actually, she's from Burnley, and she was a massive Beatles and Elvis fan. So what was in your household, growing up? What were you listening to?
Well, I mean, I was from Birmingham as well originally. Certainly, well, my parents, my father was a bit of a folkie. Used to take me to folk clubs, used to play a banjo, used to sing rebel songs and folk songs, very political songs of that scene. And my mom was in this thing called the Clarion Choir, which was kind of the lefty choir of Birmingham. So I did get dragged out. So there was a lot of culture going on around the house, and certainly they had their own things. They were into the Beatles, Simon and Garfunkel. Um, so yeah, I guess I was kind of always surrounded. I could always hear one of my youngest memories is just that music wafting up the stairs, of a bit of Bob Dylan or something. So I guess it was all there. And when I lived in Birmingham before I moved, I was a rocker. So I loved Black Sabbath and, bands like Queen and things like this, and even Maiden and Saxon. I was a proper rocker. Didn't last very long, but that was the Birmingham thing, wasn't it?
Were you wearing the denim jacket with the studs?
Totally. Denim jackets, patches galore. I grew out of it quite quick though. I had many stages, man. I was a goth for a bit and then an indie kid. I mean, I'll talk you through all this, but it was very tribal in them days, wasn't it? I had lots of influences before I found acid house, and that kind of changed it all, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of us were that way. I think I did about a year or two as a rocker. I did the same.
Yeah.
Did the stud bracelets, and
Nice.
then more into not so much goth, but more into like Depeche Mode, the stuff. But yeah, I think everyone that I know has been a rocker for at least a year or two, which I mean that's how obviously. We've said, we're around the same age. Like the 70s was very like, it was, guitar powered rock.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So how
yeah.
did you for going from that? Was it your teenage years you started to, obviously get into electronic music? Um,
Yeah, I mean, it was quite late in my teenage years. I mean, I think you're always influenced. I had an older brother who was a bit of a hippie, actually. And as a bit of a backlash, because he used to like Tangerine Dream and Hawkwind and Gong, which is pretty out there, progressive rock. And I think as a sort of backlash, I kind of really got into the jam and that new wave. Obviously, I was a bit too young for punk. Um, but I found indie music and kind of indie music. I was just totally, I love the Bunnymen and the Smiths and then the Cure. Um, and it was kind of New Order, that turning point. That was the electronic music that kind of switched me on. Because, synthesizers were a little bit of a dirty word for indie kids, especially a rocker coming an indie kid, you know what I mean? And yeah, so, and then I found sort of acid house and techno probably not until I was about 18 or 19. But it was 1988, 89. That was the summer of when it all kicked off, really, wasn't it? And it was that Balearic sort of stuff, Finny Tribe, and very Balearic beats and stuff. I didn't really understand it though, but I kind of liked it. I couldn't, if you played me a Detroit house, a techno records and a Chicago house record, I probably wouldn't have been able to tell the difference. But I kind of just got drawn to it for some reason. It took me a while to work out what was going on, but it kind of got me, you know.
well, it was a movement, I mean,
Yeah.
again, 1985, I'd be listening to Depeche Mode, New Order, Smiths, Bunnymen, exactly the same as you. And then this new music started to slowly like come in, and
Yeah.
you just kind of followed everyone. I remember first hearing the DIY system and just,
Not
what is this? Like I needed to hear more. And I was just like you too, like Chicago house, Detroit, like what's the difference? But then as you get older, the bass lines are different, melodies are different, but it hooked me, hook, line,
yeah.
and yeah, it was just it was freedom back then as well. I
It
think that's what it was, like a big FU to the establishment as well.
Totally. I mean, people don't get that. It was rebel music and it was a battle, Those free parties that we used to go to, it was like pretty sketchy and, you felt like you were up against it and you were doing something different. It was a proper youth movement and it was really exciting and just hitting you that at that right age, where you know, you've left your sort of parents' house, you can go out for 48, 72 hours and don't have to be back and no one's telling you what to do and you just freedom, you hit it there. It was freedom, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just there was so much. I mean, we grew up in the Thatcher era, so there
Yeah.
wasn't, especially from being the Northwest, we were kind of
Yeah.
shunned,
Yeah.
especially, Liverpool was just, nah, let them deal with themselves. I mean, it was a bad time for people that didn't have money, and this was like you said, it was rebelling against the establishment. There was many nights, going down dirt roads. You don't know where you're going to end up, especially leaving a party. You were just, praying you could get home. Um,
Adventures, weren't there?
oh,
So
it
many.
was. I mean, it kind of ties in for me with like away days for football. It is
Of course,
going to all these different countries, and that was part of the game, was kind of a sideshow. It was getting there with your mates, and I think like the acid house parties was exactly the same. You'd go with the same 4 or 5 mates, and I still have the same mates still to this day back home. And you just pick up where you left off. You just like, how on earth did we get home that one time? I'm like, that one time, you mean more than like 100 times? Um, but how did you go from? I mean, obviously going to the acid house parties. Were you already friends with Ian and some of the band before forming the band?
Yes, I mean the four of us, apart from Ian, because Ian lived up the road in Gloucester, the four of us went to school together. So we were all school friends. We'd all played in bands together with each other, different bands, but different combinations. But the four of us were always kind of heavily involved in music in that local scene. I worked in a music shop in Gloucester, which was about 40 minutes up the road, but it was the big city. We were actually from these little villages in the Forest of Dean. And I got to know Ian. Ian was in a band that was, at the time, I thought they were really successful because they had a record out and stuff like that. And I think they might have had a deal with Virgin. And I got really friendly with Ian, and I says, "Oh, Ian, come down, check. We've got an idea. We've got a vibe for a band." And then Ian jumped on board. So we've known it. We did know each other for years. Some of us a very long time, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the band happened really quick, but we had been at it, playing in church halls and sheds and barns for quite a while before that. But yeah.
Was Ian like because he's the much older one, isn't he? So was he like the daddy of the band?
Definitely the most sensible out of all of us. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of, I guess, these days he doesn't seem that older, but when back then, those few years make a hell of a difference, don't they? Yeah, he was sensible. He kind of knew, he had knowledge of how to put things together musically. He's very good musically. It's all right having a great idea and a vibe, but you've got to structure it and make it work and arrange it, and getting a song finished is quite a different business. And he's got skills in how to write songs, which is exactly what we needed at that point. We were really good at dressing up in fancy dress clothes and jumping around on settings and, telling everybody we were the greatest band in the world and, creating a great vibe. But yeah, it was definitely a bit of meeting of minds and chemistry that made it work at the time.
Well, I think a great story is when the record executives, you made them come to you, which
Yeah.
I think is absolutely brilliant, because you'd built up a following in where you were, and what's the best place for them to come see you is
Exactly.
where you normally play. And I think that was another kind of ballsy move that paid off for you.
Yeah, I mean, we were pretty ballsy at the time, but we knew no different. You know what I mean? We didn't think it was that outrageous to invite, Virgin Islands and EMI up to our local pub. And these gigs we used to do in our local pub, we only did a handful of gigs, but they were wild. I mean, there'd be a little back room, function room, hold about 50 people, and we'd cram about 300 people in there. The people climbing through the windows, everybody, it was just mayhem, and it was brilliant. But I remember the record executives turning up, and we still charged them, I think it was £1.50 on the door to get in. You know what I mean? It was kind of, and they were a bit like standing at the back, a bit scared. But yeah, it kind of worked in our favour, I think. But it's weird though. It's kind of come around a little bit where you hear about bands who do that and do it by their own rules, don't they? There's a band called, do you know the Write-Ons? Have you ever come across them?
No,
They're
not
like,
yet.
they're kind of, they're selling big gigs out and, selling records and charting even, but they've kind of done it without any record label, but just doing it with fans and doing it their own way. And so it was a little bit like that, I guess. And we didn't expect to get a record deal or get famous, so it didn't really matter, really.
Yeah, I think if there was like a band camp back
Mm.
in those days, it would have helped a lot of bands, because there's some very, very good bands that aren't signed yet. I mean, especially living where I live in Austin, we have a massive music festival called South by Southwest.
Yeah.
Tons and tons of English bands come, and it's sometimes this is only like their, 56th gig, but it puts them out there. And obviously, how it's so cutthroat, this business. You have a smash one year, then the follow-up doesn't do the job and you dropped. I mean, it really is like, it's got to be tough to I mean, especially you were in your early 20s when Unbelievable came out, and Schubert Dip, 91. So you were like, what, 22? I mean, that's still young in this business. And then to be like put to the front of the queue and basically shoved over to America. And I mean, for a 22-year-old to just be like, all right, you're going on tour in America. I mean, had you ever been to the US before that? Oh, no. I
I mean,
can only
yeah, I
imagine.
mean, we did take it in our stride. Um, yeah, I haven't really thought about it much, Dan, to be honest with you. But now you're saying it like that, I'm thinking, wow, that is pretty wild. My kids just turning 18. I'm just thinking in a couple of years, I was touring the world and, hanging out in jacuzzis with models and in LA and stuff. No, I wasn't really, but, it's, we were young. Yeah.
But how was that then? I mean, if you remember those days, like
No, I
it,
don't. I can't really remember. I remember. I don't know. I remember. I remember it being pretty wild. I remember partying. Things got interesting when I started hanging out with other bands.
yeah,
And they kind of showed me how to do it, which is really strange for you to say, but I was so young and so naive. But then on that first American tour, we took Hot itself with us
mhm.
for 2 or 3 weeks and just hanging out with them, just thinking, oh my God, so what? You just get pissed in the morning and then you just go right on stage, and then you party all night long. It's just like, wow. So this is what you do. Um, yeah, that was the start of it really. But I had to be a little bit careful being the singer and that.
Mhm.
Because, there's a bit of responsibility where the rest of the guys were really enjoying themselves. And I wish if I had my time again, I'd probably try and enjoy it a little bit more, I think.
Was there any tellies out windows?
Yeah, there was tellies out when we once got do you remember that violin player? What was his name? Summit Kennedy? God, he's famous. He was one of these rock and roll violin players. He was signed to EMI. I went to an EMI conference. I think it might have been in Austin actually. And he was notorious for getting really pissed. He wanted to be rock and roll, but he was a classical violinist. Nigel Kennedy. Do you remember? Does that name ring a bell?
The name does ring a bell.
We managed to persuade him to throw a telly out the window, which was yeah, you got to be done, hasn't it? Yeah, cliches.
Yeah, well, I mean, the good thing is, you don't, well, I mean, you do pay for it because that's the thing that you probably didn't know about then. Whatever your expenses are coming out of what you're getting paid, right?
Yeah,
Which,
totally.
which, which, I'm sure, you know, not a lot of young bands read the fine print back then on
Yes,
contracts.
exactly. It means kind of nothing. All that 5 album million-quid deal doesn't mean anything really. They can drop you at any point. As soon as you stop selling records, they'll drop you. And it took us ages. I mean, luckily we got to record a third album, but that third album it put us in debt for years. I'm probably still in debt now to EMI for that record. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, gosh, it's got to be. But there was a lot of money flying around back then. I don't think there's so much money now. Well, maybe people like Beyonce and stuff like that there is, but certainly just rock and roll bands. I think they kind of struggle. I mean, I think they might struggle to even pay themselves wages. Certainly, from my experience of touring recently, we always come away in not making any money. So
Mhm.
yeah, which is kind of strange, isn't it?
It,
You
it,
do.
it is, and it's wrong,
Mm.
because you're the one that's basically doing all the hard work. You're the ones that are writing the songs. You're just getting a backing from a label, and someone in a suit is getting paid millions while you get what? It's I know over there like 10 cents for an album. That's what you're making.
Crazy, isn't it?
It's a joke. I mean, it is. I mean, I'm not a musician, but I've got friends who are, and they tell me horror stories.
Hmm.
They're exactly like you going, we still owe the record company, and
Yeah.
we're never gonna pay him back. That's, I guess, you can put that one down. Like, it's just, people just think it's caviar, champagne, you know, uh,
Yeah,
private jets, and it's
it's
not.
funny actually. Yeah, because we've just announced 3 American dates, and
Hmm.
on the Facebook feed, I put a post up, and everyone's saying, "Why don't you come play Florida? Why don't you come play all these other places?" And I'm just thinking, because I've got to go back and go to work. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Getting 3 days away, coming away for a weekend in America, is all we can kind of do because I've got to get back to work on Monday morning. That's because and there's so many of my friends who are in bands now but have to have jobs. And I'm not complaining because I've had a good run at it, but that's the reason we're not out there all the time doing it.
Well, plus America is so massive.
Yeah,
It's not like you can get in on a coach and drive 3 hours and you're in, a different city like every night. I mean, for Texas, where I am, it takes you 10 hours to get outside of Texas.
it's insane, that is, isn't
And
it?
I saw it on the thing too. People, why aren't you coming to Boston? Why aren't you coming to Philly? Why? It's like,
It's,
well, they think, again, it's also based on fanfare as well. I would think, how your albums have sold. You're not going to go to some place in like Wisconsin that you'll because I'm sure you'll see a chart of like kind of how much your sales are. You're not going to go to a place that nobody's going to show up. So that's the thing, you might have a couple of fans in different areas, but it's tough to kind of navigate the US.
yeah, it is. I mean, when we did it originally, we'd go out there for 6 weeks at a time and live on a bus, and but we could do that. We were young, we had energy, and we didn't really need any money. You know what I mean? It's kind of just, and we'd drive to a city, get up, do some press, go to the local record store, do a sign in, then do a meet and greet before the gig, meet the radio people, the press people, do the gig, after show party, get on a bus, drive to the next city, and do it all again for 6 weeks. But you really had to work it. And it was great because it was an adventure, but I couldn't do that now, I don't think.
No, just listening to you has made me tired. There's no chance I'd be able to do that. Like
No, no.
even like when I come back home, after flying for 10 hours, I'm done for the next couple of days. I can't imagine being on a a coach for 6 weeks. But as we say, when we're young, we've got all this energy, but
Yeah.
and you're hanging out with your best mates.
And you bounce back really quick when you're young. You can have a big night out and bounce back, can't you?
Yeah.
These days, though, like you say, I've been in bed for 3 or 4 days on a big bender.
Yeah, and then I'll feel sorry for myself and cry myself to sleep in a fetal position. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just not as good as it used to be, is it?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Um, out of like your three albums, I think you've always said like Stigma is the one that you've really liked, and I think that's what everyone did. What did you think was like I want to say like boiling point, but like, was it just after the second album? Was it the record label going, you need to kind of make another Schubert dip?
No, I think the lack of guidance was the problem, to be honest with you. If someone turned around and says, write some pop songs. It's okay to write pop songs and, sell records. We were so up our arse about trying to be cool
Mm.
at the expense of not selling any records because Stigma didn't sell any records. People love that album and say, out of all the EMF, it's the classic and all that. But it certainly didn't have any hit records on it. And I think by the time we got to the third album, we just didn't have any vision. Everything, nothing was coherent. It was like we didn't know what we were doing. We wrote a completely wild third album that was a double album, and it was just all over the shop. There was nothing holding it together. And I think that represented as we were as people as well, because we've kind of gone off and done our own things and, got into different scenes and stuff. Sorry, that's bleeping away there, Darius. Like, all right.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it fell apart. Hindsight would have been an amazing thing. I wish we could go back and just see what was going on, but as it's fallen apart around you, you don't really notice it, do you?
No, no. There's again loads of bands have done the same as what you lads have done. Got a got a hit first album, and then
Yeah.
I hit a roadblock, or like you said, the guidance isn't there.
No,
And a lot of these bands, they do need someone to kind of sit them down and just be like, look, go write the songs that you can write. Don't put the blinders on. Don't listen to any. Don't. A lot of critics will say, this isn't as good as Schubert Dip or Stigma, blah blah blah. But it's what you lads think,
it's
and
cool.
I think if you start, because at the beginning, you're very like, you had the hip hop kind of side to you,
Mm,
the indie dance side, and then you kind of had, to me, like a little bit the punk ethos, because you were doing it your way. And yeah, like you said, you kind of lost your way. But like after the third album, still being young as well and being dropped from the label must have been, like a hammer.
yeah, it was. I mean, financially, we were okay because, we had that massive hit, which saw us okay for quite a while. So it wasn't like we were down on our luck, but very unfulfilled, just, having a big bank balance and then having nothing to do apart from go out and hang out in Camden and get off your face all day. It kind of wears a bit thin after a while. So,
Mhm.
I mean, thankfully, I mean, I know we were going to talk about Bentley Rhythm Ace, but that kind of came into my life just at the right moments. And I got to tour the world again, do it all again. But this time, without the responsibility of being a singer, I could just stand behind the keyboards and just, make acid house noises and still get off my face. Don't worry about that. It's just like, but it was kind of quite a different scene and it was brilliant. And I enjoyed that so much more. Um, which is weird because it was nowhere near as commercially good as big as EMF, but it was fun and that's what I needed really. So
Well, I mean,
yeah.
the big beat scene was
Yeah.
obviously, little off of the acid house scene. It,
Yeah.
it was it for me. I started to listen to John Carter, obviously early Norman Cook, Fatboy Slim,
Yeah.
and it it was it was raunchy, like the breaks in it. Low Fidelity All Stars. Again, it was like a little punk to me as well. It was
Well,
kind of
yeah.
saying the acid house scene's a bit up your own arse now. We're gonna do this big beat where it's like students, a lot of students were into big beat for some reason. A lot of the uni kids. But I just loved it. It was just like, again,
It was fresh and it was new, and it was a bit of a backlash against the house and the four to the floor stuff, which I totally get. Whether it's aged that well is another thing. You know what I mean? If you go back and listen to those Head Driller records or Fatboy Slim, and they sound a bit, because at the time it was kind of like it almost had like a 60s vibe, didn't it? It was almost sort of dumb, kind of, yeah, it's strange. I don't think there's many acts that have lasted.
no.
Re I mean, the Chemical Brothers, obviously, but they had they were just next level, weren't they? And,
You know who I thought would last with propeller heads,
hmm.
and they kind of just, went. I don't know, just went up. Wise Guys, I really liked as well. I mean, obviously, a lot of stuff that was on Heavenly, I would just eat it up. I mean, it was just good, but yeah, it fizzled out really quickly, didn't it?
It did, didn't it? Yeah, it was a little scene, wasn't it, that came and went. Great whilst we were in it, though. Because, I mean, we used to go down the Heavenly Jukebox, and funny enough, I dug out, because they did the Heavenly compilations where they had loads of DJs. I think Carter did one, John
Mm.
Carter, Monkey Mafia, but I was playing them to my son. And the other day, this was only yesterday in the car actually, and I was thinking this doesn't sound quite that good, I'm just going, what's going on here, but music, that's what music's supposed to come and go, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I mean, it changes, I mean, a lot of the kids now, especially over here, they use the term EDM, which it makes me cringe. Um, it's dance music. It's not electronic dance music. Come on, it's dance music. But yeah, it's just things have changed so much, especially social media. Like it just seems like everyone needs to take their mobiles out while they're
Mm.
out, and
Yeah, you see,
I miss those
don't
times.
even everybody with that and stuff.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't want to be. I know right now I sound like that old fart who sits in a rocking chair inside his house telling people to get off his grass. I just don't understand. I mean, it's their time. I don't go out to shows that much. Like I said, with having to bring up 4 kids, it's tough. And when I do go out, by 9, 10 o'clock at night, I want to come home. I'm just absolutely shattered. I don't know how people stay up past midnight these days, but it's just a different scene, especially like, I mean, some of my favorite DJs are actually yours as well, like the Governor, Andrew Weatherall.
Yeah.
Absolute bliss. He just knew how to put a set together. He didn't need to throw his hands in the air. He didn't need to pose.
Artistry. Yeah.
And I just think right now we're going through this, like, I think, it's happened quite quickly. The superstar DJs, there's pre-recorded sets, which I just don't quite understand that. I mean, it's fake.
Like a visual thing as well. If you see, like I've been to a few festivals recently, and the sound systems now are incredible. They never used to be sound systems like that in the 90s.
Yeah.
But you say there's pre-worked out sets where all the pyrotechnics and the lights and everything's all synced in. I mean, it's quite an experience, but it's like going to a theatre. It's not really losing yourself to music. It's kind of losing yourself to, I don't know, an event, isn't it? I guess. But it seems all a little bit soulless. I'm sounding like the old man now, and I don't. It's a bit soulless.
Well, I mean, it is when you see all these videos on like YouTube, and 80% of the crowd have their phones out. So it's the spectacle of it. And I think it's all right to go and take a quick video here and there, or a few pictures, but it's in here. It should stay like that. Those are the moments, and I mean, like, I just think,
Isn't it?
yeah, I think we are. We're sounded like old farts.
Yeah, we really are. And I mean, have you done the battles with your kids yet over technology?
Well, yeah. I mean, my 8-year-old, she wants a phone, and I'm like, you're 8 years old. What would you need with a phone? I mean, they already have iPads. I'm like, I go, when I was a lad.
Yeah. No, I noticed it with my youngest as soon as he turned like, I don't know, 12, 13, and he got that phone. That was it, man. Honestly, it was just like completely different person. It was just like, I know it's sad, and I've got, that parents must see that all the time, but it was like, what? And now I hardly see them. They're just sat in their room gaming or, doing stuff. In all fairness, the oldest has discovered partying, and thankfully he has. So he's going out raving a little bit and coming in the early hours. And I'm kind of proud of him for doing it, even though I should be like, what are you doing? But, it's kind of, it's real though. There's something, that connection with the real world is really important, isn't it? You know what I mean? Little kids don't have that now, do they? I guess.
Well, I mean, you just need to kind of be in your kids' lives. That's the thing. Know what they're doing, and if they are kind of turning the dark corner or whatever, have a word with them. That's the thing. I mean, I think these days you've hit the nail on the head. The kid goes in the bedroom. He's playing FIFA. He's on the phone constantly, but nobody checks in. And I think we don't have to be like best mates, but I think you have to be part of your kids' lives. You know, don't
And
let social media ruin it because, as you know, everyone has a Twitter account, but you get on Twitter and you can say whatever you want on Twitter because you're behind a keyboard. That's the
totally.
thing. Billy Big Balls says your album's shite. Oh, have you listened to it? Oh, I don't need to listen to it. I just know it is. Oh, all right, well done there. That's not what life's all about. But I do want to go back, like when you are dropped from a label, especially again at an early age, did that have an effect on your friendships with the rest of the bandmates?
Um, I think we kind of drifted apart anyway. We were all sick of each other. There's not many friendships that you go all the way through school and then like 5, 6 years afterwards, you're still hanging out and sharing hotel rooms together and bedrooms together and stuff like that. So, certainly I had closer friends in the band than others. Um, but we kind of split up different ways and we had our own friends groups. Do you know what I mean? So I didn't really notice it. I mean, they're still kind of my brothers and that, but it's not like as intense as it was.
So when did you finally go, I need to get a proper job?
Well, me and my wife, she wasn't my wife at the time, we moved up to the Yorkshire Dales. So we got out of London. I did envisage having a nice retirement, just chilling. But then we had kids and I thought there's more to life. And the best thing I ever did, because I was so lost and so like, what do I do now in life? And then 15, 20 years later, I thought, right, I'm going to go back to university. So I went back to university and did a degree and got a teaching certificate and then just fell into teaching. And honestly, it's kind of saved my life, really. I would just been a complete drunk and a mess and just like you feel people, it's hard. People who don't do anything feel it might look absolutely brilliant, but your life is not kind of it's a bit useless, isn't it? I mean, I've got to be a little bit careful what I say because a lot of my friends are still professional musicians and like playing golf all afternoon and stuff like that. But I get up and I go to work and it's good for your soul. It's so worthy. And it makes you
Mhm.
appreciate things much more. Like this weekend, we're going to go to Bearded Theory and we're playing the Saturday night with 808 State and then Orbital the DJ. And I'm just thinking, today I've been in the classroom with year eights, just like having complete shit. But then on Saturday night, I'm going to be lost in a field listening to some great dance music. So kind of, it's working for me. Don't ask me what I'll be like on Monday morning, though. That's the only problem. I've
Uh-oh.
got-
Well, I mean, it's got to bring you back down to earth, obviously. And I've seen that some of your things saying, you're in the playground chasing, eight, saying you
Yeah,
can't smoke, you can't do this, like,
but they
um,
don't smoke anymore. They vape now. They don't even vape now. I don't know what they do now. Apart from if you let it stick. But I kind of quite like it. It's taken me a long time to not be hardened to the way people can talk to you, but these kids can rip you to shreds and take the piss out of you and be really nasty. And it's just like, oh, come on. It's quite funny. It's good. It puts everything in perspective. Do you know what I mean?
mhm.
You might think it takes you out of yourself a little bit, thinking you're not the only person in the world. So these kids, you're not relevant at all. You mean nothing. You know what I mean? And kind of, that's quite good.
What are the parents like with you? I mean, on like, over here we have the teacher parent night. Like, I can't imagine, like, there's got to be some looking at you going, I know he's the teacher, but I've seen him before. Do you actually get people
Well,
going,
I used to 10 years ago when I started teaching, but now it's more grandparents and stuff like
oh,
that.
no,
We're getting old, Darren. You got to,
we are.
there's a few odd parents. It's kind of given me a nice, easy ride in life. Having that massive hit, Unbelievable, has kind of not opened doors for me, but people kind of love the novelty of it, and it kind of makes you. It's quite good. It's even all these years later, it's still following me around, and people are intrigued, and they kind of like it. Yeah, and especially where I work in Keighley, it's not like there's any other celebs around, so I'd be as a C-rated celeb will do. You know what I mean? They kind of quite find it quite fascinating, really.
I just think, yeah, it would be, especially as I'd do a hometown gig there. I'd be like, this is me, you know. You lads have to like listen to me just for one night, just for one night. Even if
It
you don't
wouldn't mean,
like it,
it
you're gonna.
wouldn't mean anything to him, though, Darren. Honestly, it wouldn't mean anything to him. You
Nah,
know.
they'd be vaping and on
Oh,
the social medias going, "Who is this plonker?"
yeah, 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 exactly. I can live with that. It's all right.
Well, I do want to talk about your brand new album, Acadian Rhythms, with
KDM.
which I did say at the beginning is an absolutely excellent album. And you co-wrote some of it with your wife, which
Mm.
even I really my favorites. Good Morning and The Circle Continues. I just think, I mean, this is your sixth solo album, and I think it's your best by far.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah,
And I think with you doing also the live streams,
yeah.
it's added so much more to it. It's like your little rave cave, which I love. But
But it's like your trainer cave there. I can see there's trainers behind you, mate.
oh God, yeah, yeah. I've got all my
I'm
music
not
stuff.
starting on those. You got your music stuff in front of you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, me DJ setup and everything. So
Yeah.
yeah, I have it all plugged in. But I mean, 2014 was your first one. Obviously you took a break before you did that. Um, is working solo like your favorite thing to do now? Because it is like it's all you.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's quite liberating, but I do like mixing it up. I get bored very quickly. Um, you know, at doing things like I love making music. I don't like, I love putting the music out, but I don't like all the promotion thing. And then after a few weeks, I'm just like, oh, let's just start writing some new music, or let's do some EMF stuff, or let's go and do some Bentley Rhythmace gigs. And keeping loads going on is what keeps me occupied. Or even just getting in the studio here and just knocking out a cover and just doing a live stream of it. It's kind of just keeping it active. I like being creative.
Mm.
But yeah, it's good. I'm glad you like Circadian Rhythms. Took me many years to kind of work out how to make a good dance record, really, because it's quite electronic, isn't it? Like
Mhm.
I've been in an iron for ages. Do I make guitar records? Do I make records with live drum kits? But this was just completely electronic and really simple, and I think I really enjoyed doing it.
Well, I mean that even the instrumental ones are really, really good, but I'm like, it's not long enough. I want an extended edition.
You know what? That one, the circle continues. It was 8 minutes to start with, and I started cutting it and editing it. So I have got an 8 minute version. I'll send you that
Oh,
if
I'd
you
love it.
want more.
Well, it's just like they're perfect songs for me. Like driving in the car or just listening while I'm working. It's just from start to finish. Because
Mm.
there's loads of albums, like obviously I'm a music man that I'll listen to, but I don't listen to them all the way through.
Yeah,
I'll
what,
put
I
a
was
few
really
songs on.
conscious to make them because I made it all the same BPM all the way through, and I used all the same kick drum, and I think all the hats and the claps. So there's not much variation in it. And I wanted to make an album like do you know Technique by New Order?
Yeah.
That was the idea for one. And that is one of those albums you can listen to it from start to finish. It's not like a journey. It's not like it's prog rock thing, but it's kind of just as a whole thing. It's brilliant. I've always wanted to do that. You know what I mean? And maybe I'm getting closer.
I think you nailed it.
Thanks, man.
I mean, there's always room for improvement, but you, you well,
Okay,
I mean, if there isn't, then
I can give up now, can't I? I
uh,
can give up.
yeah, And you don't want to do that because I'm telling you, I'll tell everyone about this album. Well, you can get it on James's Bandcamp, and I'll put a link to it when this goes out. But yeah, it's from start to finish, mate. It's just absolute class.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And I must say though, I crammed that in between two EMF albums because there was an EMF album just before that, and we've just came out in January, another EMF album called The Beauty and the Chaos, which I must get to you, which is out there doing the rounds as well at the moment. I mean, I'm fine talking about my own solo stuff because that's quite nice because I'd almost forgotten about it myself. So it's lovely that you're kind of bigging it up. But there isn't it.
Well, let me do the PR stuff for you.
Okay. So you got a job.
I mean, you've done so well. I mean, like again, the social media aspect has really helped musicians. It's helped my podcast to get it out there to people. But just the again, go back to your live streaming. Doing The Cure, doing the New Order songs. I'm just loving them because there's no pressure on you to do anything. You're just having fun. I love how there's one where you kind of do one early in the morning when you
yeah.
yeah, and I love that. You're just like, the kids aren't even up yet, but I'm playing. And
yeah.
That's us, isn't it?
It's a lot easier than going out and doing gigs because and we live in the middle of nowhere. We've got no neighbours, so we can make loads of noise. And funny enough, we got this internet provider who put what's it called? Fiber optic in it. Is it fiber optic? So the internet in this house, even though it's in the middle of nowhere in the Yorkshire Dales, is like the fastest internet you'll ever come across. So I could do like live streams and uploads really quick, where it's like, some people might struggle. So that was a game changer. Fiber optics.
There you go. You're P&R in them up now. Yeah, you get paid, man. But it is. I really enjoy your live streaming, and a quick novelty thing is your duck races.
Again,
where did that come from?
It's for the kids, wasn't it? It was for the kids when they were babies, and then because we've got a river, you can't really see behind me. There's a river in the back of the garden, but there's yeah, it's for the kids, and then me and Rach just kept it going. We're just suckers for it, aren't we? It's our excuse to have a few afternoon ciders and race ducks. Do you know what? I forget that it goes out there and people actually watch this shit. You know what I mean? It's like, but yeah.
Well, it brought me back to being a kid again. Everyone's had to drop a ducky. Everyone's put it down in a puddle or a stream or something. So it brought me back. And then when you had the poll to name the purple one, I do believe was the last one. Yeah. I think I put one in there, purple disco duck, but it didn't win.
No.
Well.
Yeah. Was it Grandmaster Duck or something? No, Duckmaster Flash. I can't remember. It was something we called it.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah. I just think putting stuff out there and just have.
That's what you have to do on the internet. You have to be very careful because you want to sell records, but you got to put a lot of good, nice content up as well. Where you're not, because if you just put like, I've got a new record out, people you don't get the engagement. But if you like put a duck race up or a silly cover or something like that, you kind of build an audience. Not that I'm no expert or anything like that, but it's interesting when you see even big bands just posting releases and stuff, and they don't get any come back off the audience. So, but then it's always like you put a picture of a cat up and it gets thousands of likes. It's that weird thing, isn't it?
It is. I've tried to understand like the algorithm of YouTube and all this. I'm still trying to figure it out. You can have an interview with the biggest superstar on the planet and it has a couple of thousand views. You put a cat playing the drums and it gets a million hits. And well done, cat.
That's the world we
It's
live.
it's the world we live in. But you know what? I like it because from what I watch of you, you don't take yourself too seriously, and I think that's what we should be doing. I think there's too much going on in this, like bad stuff going on in this world. You turn the telly on, you listen
Yeah.
to the news. It's just sad. It's horrible. So
Yeah.
it's great where you can you can have a laugh and
Yeah. I mean, it's a bit of
be
escapism,
happy.
isn't it? Yeah.
100%. I mean, yeah, I just, everybody's day to day is different, obviously, but if somebody is having a bad day and watches your little duck thing and has a smile, it's done the job.
Brilliant. Yeah.
That's what it's about, mate. But I know you're touring the States in July. Are you gonna be doing the festivals this summer?
Yeah, starting this weekend, we've got one, and then there's a few scattered ones around, like nothing really big. Oh, we're doing festival, that's a nice one.
Yeah.
But like most of the summer is taken up with traveling somewhere, which is nice because we do it as a family. So we just
Mhm.
rock up as a family. And it's kind of that's yeah, we haven't done any summer holidays for quite a while because the festivals kind of take up all those weekends over the summer, which I have to cram them in. Um, but yeah, there's like a nice one in Ireland with a cult actually, which I'm really looking forward to. Um, Interesting stuff. We're quite lucky that we get to choose to do interesting stuff. We don't have to go and play. I was going to say Liverpool on a Tuesday night, but that's probably going to be quite good, isn't it? But let's say Watford on a Tuesday night. Yeah, yeah. It's just like nice things. We had a wicked gig in Liverpool the other day, actually. Can't remember what the place called. It was a new venue. Great. I haven't been to Liverpool for a while. It's such a great city.
Oh, I mean, it's always been really, really good, like musically, but like there's so many new places, popping up. Like if you have a chance, try and go to 303.
Feel free. That sounds good. Is that a club or a venue?
Yeah, it's a venue. It's actually where Andy Weatherall played one of his last gigs.
Oh wow.
Played 4.5 hours.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, you can look up on YouTube. It's a fantastic venue. It doesn't have all the silly little lasers and all that. It just has a couple of lights because the main attraction is the DJ or the live band, how it should be. But yeah, yeah, if you ever back there, defo go to that. But so are
Yeah.
you going to be doing the summer festivals as EMF or as yourself or a bit of
No, just as EMF and a few Bentley Rhythm Ace shows. I have not. I kind of shy away from going out as a solo artist. I find it really difficult. Me and Rach will do stuff occasionally. Like last weekend, there was like some Balearic DJs playing in Lancaster, and we rocked up and did a little 15-minute set. But it's quite hard doing it. It's difficult. I prefer EMF's quite an easy thing because I can just stand up and grab the mic and start singing. When it's your own solo stuff, it's just a little bit too stressful for me, getting everything going and stuff. So, yeah, EMF and Bentley Rhythm Ace over the summer.
well, nice. Well, hopefully, it'll be nice weather for you. No, mudsliding or
Yeah,
anything during festival season.
great.
But how is it like? When you do take a break with EMF, and then you see some of the older bands, especially I saw Jesus Jones,
Yeah.
seeing those lads again, or being in the musicians area at festivals and just going, man, I haven't seen these lads in years. It's got to be like because they're still together, which I find. Another band that I grew up with listening to. I just find it so interesting that the lads have stuck with it. Maybe a few personnel changes here and there, but the core's still there. How is it to see all these lads again?
Well, it's lovely. I mean, they're all my friends and peers. I mean, we've all grown up. I've kind of got some really strong bonds with all the people from Jesus Jones, Carter, Potlitzer, just because we were similar sort of, we did a similar job, we were in the same job. I love it. I mean, it's not like, why shouldn't you? It's kind of what you do, isn't it? And so I'm not like, I never look at anyone and go, well, that's a bit sad. Maybe when Steps get together or something like that, I'm thinking, well, but being in a rock and roll band's the greatest thing in the world, and it's why wouldn't you want to do it?
Mm.
Why wouldn't I want to come and travel to Austin and play in a rock and roll bar and do that? It's life, isn't it? It's great. It's great. Thankfully, I can still do it.
100%. Well, James, we're already coming up to an hour. This is what amazes me about these podcast chats. They just go by so quickly, and I get to I get to hear people's stories, and I can't thank you enough for coming on and giving me a bit of part of your life.
Thanks, Darren. Yeah, no, I'm really pleased. I've really enjoyed it.
Please, everyone, go to James's Bandcamp. It's jamesatkinsmusic.bandcamp.com, and you'll find not just his music, but he's got some really great t-shirts as well. So please go check that out. And if you're around in the US, he's got 3 dates in July. I think I definitely know one's Detroit. I don't know the other two.
Detroit and then Brooklyn. June the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, I think. So yeah, that's not long, next month.
Yeah, it is. Hopefully, we won't see you on the news throwing a telly out the window and trying to act like you're 18 again.
Watch this space, yeah. Sounds like a challenge, that does, Darren.
Come on. I want to turn the telly on in a month and see you getting arrested and putting a paddy in, being a naughty boy again.
You're on. I'm going to do it.
It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. I appreciate it. Again, please, everybody, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.